If you're an artist, this is the episode for you, because we're going to talk a little bit about transitioning, if you're an artist, into a designer, and then some of the differences as well. Now, I had never really thought about talking about this before, and by the way, this is something that I address in my book that I'm hoping will come out in the spring. So keep your eye out for it, because I have been writing for a little while, and this is even later than when I was writing it. So make sure and keep your eye out, and we'll start announcing this new book in the spring. But I do address it in the book because it was almost a year ago that I realized that people didn't know the difference. And it took me talking to someone in a design boot camp for me to realize, I think people don't know the difference between an artist and a designer, because there are some differences. The cool news is, if you're an artist, you can become a designer. If you're a designer, you can be an artist, and it is wonderful both ways. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's start out. I'm going to tell you guys the story of me talking to this person about design. So I was in a design boot camp and doing the normal thing I do in a design boot camp, which, by the way, by the time this comes out, there's a chance we're done. We're not doing design boot camps very often anymore, if ever. So if you're lucky and you see one of those, you should hurry up and jump on, because I'm not doing very many of those anymore. So anyway, she was messaging me, and she was saying, well, I just want to tell you how much I disagree with, design. And the way you're talking about design. And I was like, oh, really? Like tell me a little bit more about that. And she said, well, I think that it's okay to take a long time to create a product. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, so tell me what you're doing a little bit. And she was telling me about all these things. She was like, I don't know if she was painting them or if she was creating them digitally, but she was taking a long time, and she was very much into the handmade aspect of the thing. And I got off that conversation. I said, that's fine if that's the way you want to do it. I just need you to know that it's going to be way more difficult to make money when you make things that slow. And she was like, okay, but I disagree. And I sat with that for a second and started thinking about it. And I was like, oh, she's an artist. She's trying to tell me things need to be made slow. And she's trying to tell me that's design. But I think she was a little confused, because that's being an artist. And I'm totally fine, especially as an artist, if you want to take your time to create the art and being slow about it. Traditionally, the word design came about, not that many decades ago, because before that, we were called commercial artists. We weren't called artists, we were called commercial artists. Why? Because the artwork that we did, the things that we designed, were for making money in a commercial aspect. Most of the time it was in advertising. Sometimes that was in, billboards or other things that we were creating, print product, right? That it was really commercial art, not straight up art in a gallery, which we do expect the artist to maybe take a lot of time and put all this handmade effort into it. And it's a very different method, right? It's I call it traditional. And some of this will be in the book as I talk about the starving artist myth. And that's when I realized, it took me a second to realize, she's confusing the two things. If you're a designer, you should be creating quickly. As designers, one of our jobs is to create under a deadline, because we are really commercial artists. And that was our name from art history on, right? From the early 1900s, when we started doing lithographs to screen printing, we were commercial artists. And just in the last, I would say 30 years or so, the name got somehow switched to designer. So what we do as a designer is we make art for money. And we have very specific vehicles, places to put this art so that it makes money. Are you staying with me on this? Because this is really one of those like finer points where like designers can be artists and artists can be designers. And I want you to know that you can be both. We have actually in design, so we have several women who consider themselves artists and fine artists. And what we're trying to do is get that fine art into a digital format so we can sell it commercially, so that they can use it in the design aspect. We have several designers who spend a lot of time doing art, okay? And it takes longer to do. And maybe they want to sell it and maybe they don't. Maybe they want it to be in a traditional gallery setting. That's fine as well. But the point is that they're really two different things. And when we're creating things quickly, that goal is to make them so that they're commercially feasible for people to buy. Does that make sense? So if you've been wondering whether you're an artist or a designer, you need to think about what you want to do, okay, and how you want to produce and how you want to move forward. Yeah, we're like in a pause moment here while Thunder very loudly licks in his bowl.
One of the things will happen in your podcast, Thunder is walking around in the background and stuff, people will love that. They'll be like, oh, it's so cute, there's a dog lapping up water in the background. Alright, more of these. You're so cute.
So here's the deal. If you're an artist who wants to become a designer, then we're going to produce product quicker so that we can make them commercially feasible. If you want to be an artist, feel free to take your time and take that art and do with it what you will. Doesn't mean you can't still sell it. Artists still sell their work. But generally, it's a longer process. Very often, it's not being set up in ways that you can sell it commercially the way you'd like to. A lot of it's very much like prints, right? Like, so if you have an art print that you are designing and then you maybe scan and you sell it in its original format versus very much what some of the things I teach in design, which is, how do we set it up in such a way so that it works for a Glowforge file, or it works for, a Glowforge printer or a Sawgrass printer, or it works for a Silhouette or a Cricut machine, right? Those are two different ways of thinking about how we produce the art so that it works as a vehicle. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learn just a little bit more about the difference between an artist and a designer, and I will see you soon.
Hey, did you know that you can visit me at makeanddesign.com to learn more about this podcast and join my VIP group for weekly freebies? I can't wait to see you there.